Memches Pasuk Yud. Ve'ine Yisroel kovdim mizoken. The eyes of Yosef, of Yisroel, again, Yisroel, he's not referred to here as Yaakov, because here Yaakov is functioning in the context of the destiny of Klal Yisrael. He's giving a bracha, which will impact and determine the future of the Jewish people. Ve'ine Yisroel kovdim mizoken. It was weighted down because of his elderly age. So this is the equivalent of macular degeneration. Lo yuchal liros, he wasn't able to see. Vayagesh osem Yosef vayishik lem echabik lohem. Yosef brings them close to his father. He kisses them and he embraces them. We find something similar when Yitzroel gave the bracha. He also, Torah tells us, he wasn't able to see. And when Yaakov came, he embraced him. He kissed him, embraced him. What's all this expression of feeling, the kissing and the hugging? What is it all about? So over here, the Sefarno says, that his nefesh, his spirit, should attach itself to them, and the bracha should be effective. What does this mean? When one gives a blessing to another person, there's an attachment between the one who gives the blessing and the one who receives the blessing. The more focused and the greater the connection between the two, the beneficiary is a greater beneficiary. If Yaakov would be able to see, believe, there's nothing more absolute in terms of reality than seeing. As we say, seeing is believing. Seeing is reality. Knowing something, but not seeing it, you're not able to have, it doesn't touch all your senses. When you see it, it touches your senses. When you kiss something and it touches you emotionally and you embrace, you actually become one with that person. As a result of that, the bracha is more direct and it's able to be expressed and impacts greater on the recipient in terms of the one who's giving the blessing. So firstly, he wasn't able to see. He couldn't clearly make them out. Secondly, the attachment, the physical attachment, the emotional attachment is an added factor that the bracha should be more effective. Just to bring up, we find that when Yitzhak asked Esav to bring him the trappings to eat, so he should be able to bless him. So over there, the Sefarno says, why did he need the delicacies as a prerequisite for the blessing? The Sefarno makes the point over there. So he explains that as much as the one who gives the blessing is qualified to give the blessing, the person to be a beneficiary of the blessing has to be worthy for the blessing. Yitzchak knew that Esav was not Yaakov. As we discussed, at that point, Yitzchak believed that Esav would be the equivalent of the Zvulun, for Yaakov would be the Yisachar. Yaakov was the most spiritual of the two. So because he wasn't as spiritualized as Yaakov, he didn't have the actual Torah itself. He needed a schus, a merit, that the blessing that he gives him should be effective. Therefore, he asked him to first fulfill the mitzvah of kibbutz, honoring the father, and the merit of fulfilling the mitzvah of kibbutz, Esav would be the beneficiary of the bracha. So it wasn't the question of the quality of the bracha of Yitzchak. It had to do with Esav not having the worthiness to be the recipient of the bracha. This, as much as he kisses him, as much as he hugs him, and wants the bracha to take effect, the person himself has to have some worthiness to be the recipient of the bracha. Therefore, he asked them to bring him the delicacies, bring him the delicacies. So in the merit of kibbutz, he would be the worthy of the bracha. And he says, where do you see this? Because we find later when Yaakov had fled to go to Paddan Aram, where Yitzchak had sent him to find a wife, because he didn't understand that he's fleeing for his life under the direction of his mother, Rivka. So he says before he leaves, I give you Birchas Avraham. Birchas Avraham means he's giving him the bracha that Yitzchak is the recipient of the land of Canaan. Because Hashem had said, L'chol zarecha, the land of Canaan is for yours and your progeny. That bracha was given from Yitzchak, passed on to Yaakov. That the land of Canaan only belongs to the children of Yaakov, not to Yosef. As we said earlier, Ki b'Yitzchak korzera. This is within the progeny of Yitzchak will be considered your progeny. All your children are not considered your progeny, to exclude Yosef. So the bracha of Birchas Avram, which is referring to the bracha of the land, was given only to Yaakov. So the Siforno asks, but we don't find over there when he gave the bracha to Yaakov to give him the land, he didn't ask him to do anything to fulfill the mitzvah kibbutz, to be worthy to be the recipient of the bracha. So he explains he didn't have to do the mitzvah because in his own right, because he was Yaakov Ishtam Yosef V'Holim, he was spiritualized due to his immersion in Torah, he was worthy. Esav didn't have that level of worthiness. Therefore, he had to actually ask him to first do the mitzvah kibbutz, that due to that mitzvah, he would actually be worthy to be the recipient of the bracha. This is the Siforno. Over here, Yaakov is giving the bracha to the children of Yosef. So even though Yaakov is qualified, the children are qualified to receive the bracha. Nevertheless, in addition, you need that level of attachment. Vayishak, he kisses them, he embraces them. There's that attachment, that physical, the emotional feeling, and therefore you feel one in the same with that person, and you want to convey your feelings, and through those feelings, the bracha becomes a more effective bracha. That's the reason why we need Vayishak and the Vayichabeg, the kissing and the embracing. The Yomi Yisroel or Yosef, again, the appellation for Yaakov is Yisroel. To see your face, I never considered. I mean, he believed he was dead. Filoti. Now, Hashem has shown me even your children. I mean, what would it be? I never considered I would see your face. What's your face? Say Osra. I never considered I would see your face. What's Rose Ponechlo Filoti? So you're able to say maybe one of two things. We had said that Yosef was considered the Ben Zekunim. So there were three interpretations, Ben Zekunim. Either he was born to him in his older age, he was his 11th son, or he was the wisest of his children, or Zivi Kunadon Mishaloviv, that his facial features were exactly like his father's. Yosef looked exactly like Yaakov. And then Rashi over there says that all Yaakov's experiences and challenges, Yosef had the exact same challenges. Yaakov had to flee, Yosef was sent away. Yaakov's brother hated him and wanted to kill him. Yosef's brothers there was a contentious relationship. They wanted to kill him, and they would have, but they sold him to slavery. There are many similarities. It's a carbon copy. Yosef's life was a carbon copy of his father. But this is included in the Ben Zekunim. The facial features being exact like Yaakov was only a reflection that Yosef's ability and potential was similar to his father. So the face of Yosef, what did it represent? It represented the spirituality of Yaakov. So what would be? He says, it's not, I didn't think I would see you. Ro ponechelo filoti. To see your face, that in terms of what you represent, because we had said that Yaakov, he heard what the sons had told him. Yosef's still alive. That wasn't enough. He saw the wagons. And as Rashi said, based on the Gemara, the wagons represent the last thing they studied was Egla Rufa. Meaning Yosef being alive wasn't sufficient for Yaakov. Yosef being the viceroy of Egypt and having all the power is not enough for Yaakov. Yosef has to be that spiritually attuned person to have that appreciation for the spirituality and the destiny of Klal Yisrael, to be able to be the proper provider. So until he saw the agolos, the wagons, which represented the last thing they had studied, only then was Vatchi Ruach Yaakov. Only then did he have his prophecy restored. And when he saw him, what happened? It says that Yosef cried on his father's shoulder. Yaakov said, Kriya Shema. What did Yaakov say, Kriya Shema? So the way I understood it was, because when Yaakov saw Yosef and he saw him in real time, he saw exactly that Yosef was going to be the one who will guarantee the eternity of Klal Yisrael. When he had that understanding, he dedicated his existence to saying Kriya Shema. That's the reason. It was like giving thanks to God that now God's unity will be represented in existence. That's why Yaakov said the Kriya Shema and Yosef cried on his shoulder. I mean, Yaakov loved Yosef more than all his children. He should have cried. The answer is because when he saw him, what did he see? He saw him in real time. He understands Yosef is Yosef HaTzadik. As a result of that, the Klal Yisrael will be provided for in a way that after the years when they're ready to leave, they'll be ready to receive the Torah at Sinai. Therefore, he's saying here, I never considered that I'd see your face, not to see you. When I see your face, I see that your spiritual status is the way it should be. I never ever considered. Not only that, I see your children, because your children themselves, they were raised, and as we'll see in a moment, that they were even being tribes, although they were the sons, the grandsons, but that Yosef was able to raise them, no different than Yaakov raised his own children. In Paddan Aram, that means Yosef has the status of a patriarch. And because of that, he was able to raise such special children. Yosef Osanim, Birkov. Yosef removes his children from between the knees of his father. Now, this seems to be totally unrelated to anything. And he prostrates himself before his father. La'apov. Now, what's this prostration at this moment? What's the value of this? Just go, let's read a little further. Now, first of all, what is prostration? What is that gesture of prostration? It's a level of negation. It's not only if you're humble, but when you actually actualize that concept of I am nothing, it impacts on you, and it crystallizes. I'm like the dust of the earth. So it's internalizing humility as a reality. You can be humble. This brings it to the ultimate level of humility. Now, why is that necessary now? Listen. The Yikach Yosef Shneim, as Ephraim b'yamino, the small Yisroel takes Ephraim, the younger of the two, to his right, which is on the left side of his father. Again, Yisroel, not Yaakov. Ves Menashe b'smolo mimin Yisroel, again, to the right of Yisroel. Vayagesh Osa, Elov, and then he approaches his father. Vayishlach Yisroel es yimino, vayoshes, Again, it could have said Vayishlach es yimino. What does it have to repeat again? Vayishlach Yisroel es yimino. Vayoshes al rosh Ephraim. He takes his right hand, he puts it on the head of Ephraim, who's the younger of the two. Vesmol al rosh Menashe. Sikel es yodov ki Menashe b'chor. And he put his hands with wisdom, because factually Menashe was the b'chor. Yet he put his right hand, which is the primary hand, which communicates the bracha on the head of the younger one. I'm going to skip just a little bit. We'll get back to the bracha. Tezvov, vayevorech es Yosef vayomar. He blessed Yosef, and he said, I mean, here he's blessing Ephraim and Menashe, but yet the Torah tells us he's blessing Yosef. Right? I mean, the commentators discuss this. It should say, vayevorech es Ephraim ves Menashe. What do you mean he's blessing Yosef? Yosef originally is bringing his children to be blessed by Yaakov when he hears his father's not well. And now it says, vayevorech es Yosef. So who's the recipient of this bracha? His children are only worthy to receive this bracha because the children of what? They themselves have that special status. Because Yosef understands the spiritual dimension of his children. But that's only because it's Yosef. They are an expression of Yosef. So the recipient of the bracha is Yosef. So Yosef should be worthy of his bracha. What does Yosef have to do? Therefore, Yosef prostrates himself before his father. Before his children receive the bracha, they're going to be the recipients of the bracha, but who's being blessed? Yosef's being blessed. To be worthy of the bracha at that special level, you have to have a level of negation. I'll give you an example. The Maral of Prague explains, the Gemara tells us in one location that a person who's a Baal Gaiva, he has the negative characteristic of arrogance or haughtiness in a very exaggerated level. God says the world is not big enough for both of us. Not big enough. The God says, I'm out of here. So the Maral explains, he says it's equivalent if you have a skin that you put wine in it. It was like a leather pouch. If you have the skin is just a membrane, the skin has a greater capacity to receive wine. If the leather is thicker and you measure from the outside, but if the skin, the leather is thicker, there's less capacity to put the wine in there. So there's the less of you, there's more for God. There's more room for God. What about if you don't exist? So there's no barrier between God and your neshama. What's the separation? It's the physicality. It's the I, it's the me. But if there's a total negation on the I, there's no separation. You one in the same as the other. Yosef prostrated himself before his father. As we said before, what's the kissing and the embracing? It's an attachment of one to the other. The other person should be the ultimate beneficiary of the blessing. So the more Yosef negates himself, there's less of a separation between himself and his father from the recipient side. Therefore, since the bracha ultimately says Vayivarech es Yosef, therefore prior to that, it says Vayishtachu Apav Orza. He prostrated himself. So this act of negation was that he should be the ultimate beneficiary of the bracha which Yaakov is giving to his children. Vayar Yisrael b'nei Yosef. Yaakov sees, Yisroel sees the sons of Yosef. The Yomem mi Eile. He says, who are they? What kind of question is this? I mean, Ephraim studied with Yaakov all the years that he was in Egypt. And therefore Yaakov understood Ephraim being more special, more spiritual. Yeshua ben Nun was from the tribe of Ephraim. he was intimately close with his grandchildren. Ephraim, now he said, who are they? So Rashi over here says, see Rashi, he wanted to give them a blessing, and all of a sudden he had a lapse. The Shechina detached itself from him. Why did it detach itself? These two evil people were ultimately going to descend from Ephraim. The Yehu born of Menashe. So that was the reason why the Shechina detached itself, and he felt they weren't worthy of a bracha. The Yom Mi'elech Mehechon Yotzu Elu She'enu Ruyin LeBracha. Where did they come? There's something impure about them, and that's the reason why they're not worthy of bracha. But he knew they were tzaddikim. So what did he say to his father? But Yom Yosef el bon of Bonaihem. So Rashi says, Heralo shtar ersin ushtar ksuba. He showed him that the marriage was legitimate, done exactly, met all halachic standards. Now, this is important, this piece. Alan. Ubikesh Yosef Rachmim ala dover. After he responded, he prayed to Hashem at that moment. V'noch olav ruach kodesh. And the Shechina, the divine spirit, was restored. There was a lapse because of the problem. Yosef was bikesh rachmim, supplicated Hashem. The Shechina was restored. Now Yaakov feels they are worthy of the blessing. I mean, if they're worthy of the blessing, why does Yosef have to bikesh rachmim? What does he have to supplicate Hashem? They're his children. He sees them. Yosef is Yosef. So evidently his children are worthy of the bracha. Yet there's a lapse. Evidently he's not aware there's a problem. Yosef prays and asks for rachmim, and then the Shechin is restored. What's going on? Either he's worthy or not worthy. So it's like we always say, whenever something special is supposed to happen, which will impact and determine the destiny of Klal Yisrael, immediately we talk about Midas Hadin. There's always a level of prosecution at that moment. And Yosef understood it, what was going on. Therefore, Bikesh Rachmim, since his children were going to be the beneficiaries of this bracha, which will be the destiny of Klal Yisrael, at this point, he didn't know they would be designated as tribes. But even the bracha, that they should be proliferating like fish and so on. He understood that bracha was essential for the destiny of Klal Yisrael. This is Yisroel speaking here. Therefore, this Midas Hadin. Therefore, he had to supplicate Hashem. He had to ask for Rachmim to be worthy, because nobody is perfect. And this is, I want to get back to the point with Aaron was Korach. When Aaron was installed as the Kohen, the Shechina didn't come down immediately. Moshe had to go into the old Moed and supplicate Hashem for Rachmim, and only then the Shechina came down. Why? It's the same thing. Because the Shechina coming down there, the level of worthiness has to be literally on a perfect level. Otherwise, there's prosecution. Therefore, Moshe had to go in with Aaron, and it says, and be Vakesh Rachmim, and only when he was Vakesh Rachmim, only then did the Shechina come down. So therefore, over here, Yosef had to supplicate Hashem for Rachmim, and only then was the Shechina restored, and Yaakov was able to do what he wanted to do. Okay, we're going to stop here.